On Wednesday, April 27, 2011, Alabama hosted an unusual yet perfect set of weather conditions that produced dozens of deadly tornadoes beginning before dawn until late that night. Within the span of a few hours, one of the most prolific and catastrophic natural disasters in Alabama's history unfurled. A record-breaking 62 monsters from the sky ravaged the northern two-thirds of the state, scattering 10 million cubic yards of debris, claiming more than 240 lives, and causing an estimated $1.5 billion in property damage. Immediately following this epic tornado outbreak, Governor Robert Bentley declared a state of emergency and mobilized 1,400 National Guard troops to help with search and rescue, law enforcement, and coordinating debris removal. Contributions of supplies, money, and people power poured in from throughout Alabama and beyond as vigorously and as quickly as the tornadoes that hurled livelihoods into oblivion. EMA and FEMA mobilized immediately, and within 24 hours, President Barack Obama declared Alabama an expedited major disaster. On April 28th, Governor Bentley opened the 211 Connects Alabama call center to register disaster volunteers, and on April 29th, he deployed 35 mutual aid teams to disaster areas to provide medical aid and assist with search and rescue. That same day, he opened a recovery response call center where survivors could obtain information and resources. Almost 120,000 volunteers registered at volunteer reception centers throughout the state and provided more than 152,000 volunteer hours. As many as 1 million people were without power following the tornadoes. The Tennessee Valley Authority estimated that storm-related structural repairs cost the company $39 million, following the $95 million spent on replacement power until the Browns Ferry nuclear plant and 2 units at Widows Creek fossil plant were reconnected to the grid in late May and early June. Alabama Power estimates $200 million in damage, more than Hurricanes Ivan, Katrina, and Dennis combined. About 900 miles of wire was toppled, 318 substations damaged or destroyed, and 7,600 poles down. This unprecedented tornadic outbreak, which included 7 EF3, 8 EF4, and 3 EF5 monsters that decimated more than 1,200 miles across the state, will eventually rank as one of FEMA's top 10 costliest disasters. And Alabama's municipalities will be recovering for many years to come.
April 27th started as a very strange morning. I got a call from EMA about 4:30 a.m. that Tuscaloosa County was under a tornado warning and to expect strong storms coming through the city. I remember sitting on my couch and turning on the television and watching the news reports of the storm coming through. And because that storm happened that morning, all of our schools decided to cancel that day, which ultimately saved hundreds of lives in our community. I decided to go out for a jog to get the morning started, and I remember just the odd feeling. Nothing felt right. It was humid. It just was an odd sense to the day. By the time I got to work, the power was out at City Hall. Our generator had failed, which has never happened in the 6 years that I've been here. And it was just really an ominous start to what was going to be probably the most memorable day of my life. About noon, the National Weather Service sent over a note telling us that Tuscaloosa had a 45% chance of experiencing tornadic activity. No one on our staff, no one with EMA had ever seen the National Weather Service make such a bold prediction. At that point, I canceled my afternoon schedule. I decided we would close City Hall early, activated our incident command system, and began to hunker down for what would be a long afternoon. About 3:30, as I sat in our command center, I remember watching a tornado hit Coleman, Alabama. Even in my mind, I kind of ran through a checklist of things that we would need to do. I knew that our command system was in place. We were holding over shifts. We were doing all the things necessary. And then as the hour progressed, the storm kept coming out of the west, and I'd look at it radar. I would pull it up on my iPad. You could tell it was bearing down on Tuscaloosa. About 4:50 around there, we decided to evacuate our command center downstairs to our basement, since our command center was temporarily located on our second floor due to renovations. I came to my office and decided that I would pull the tornado up on my traffic monitor. I'm able to access all the traffic cameras from my office. And as I looked southwest, I began to see it and began to realize that we were about to be hit. At that point, I decided to go downstairs and join our staff because it appeared that it was headed downtown. As we were all huddled around this small television in this room that was being renovated, we watched, like everyone else across the world, to see this massive tornado grinding through your city. And it was really, for me, one of the most surreal moments, because I'm watching it probably as millions of people across this country are watching it. At the same time, I have the knowledge that this is my city. This is where I grew up. I know people where that tornado is tracking through. By the time it hit McFarland and 15th Street, the camera feed cut. I looked around at our staff gathered, and everyone had this look on their face of, oh my God, what's happened? And I just asked everyone to remain calm. We've got a job to do. Let's get to work. And immediately the city began to pull itself together and began to really understand what had happened. As I walked back up the stairs towards command, Robin Edgeworth, who's one of our incident commanders, whispered in my ear and said, "Mayor, the Curry facility's been destroyed." For those who don't know much about the Curry facility, it's a 343,000 square foot city-owned facility that houses emergency management, facilities maintenance, parts of water distribution, and our environmental services department. It also housed about 10% of the city's entire fleet. When this news came to me, I thought, it can't be true. I mean, this is a steel and concrete reinforced facility. It's probably just had moderate damage. Well, as additional reports came in, it was obvious we had lost that facility, lost a large amount of our fleet. In addition, we had lost 2 of our communication towers. 911 was inoperable. Communication between police cars had become inoperable. We had also sustained damage to our water distribution system in East Tuscaloosa, so water wasn't flowing, and our hospital wasn't getting water as well. We'd lost a police precinct, we'd lost a fire station, and our sewer treatment plant had been heavily hit. Its generators were failing, and we were concerned that we might have to discharge sewage into our river. This was the first 5 minutes, and it's something that I will never forget. After meeting with our staff, our incident command staff, briefly at 5:30, I decided to go out into the city because, as Emery Fulmer once told me, you have to inspect what you expect. And I wanted to see firsthand before our 8 o'clock meeting what exactly our citizens were going through. I remember looking at the damage, and for a second it paralyzed me. People have asked, well, how did you stay so poised? Well, I'm like anyone else. I was scared to death at that moment. People were walking towards you who were bleeding, trying to get to the hospital. You were in a scene of chaos and utter destruction. Phones were not working. Ambulances were overloaded. Staff at the hospital were not ready because of the sheer numbers. It was a very frightening moment, to say the least. By our 8 o'clock briefing, we began to understand exactly what we were facing. We knew that we had a 6-mile path to destruction that in some places was more than 6,000 feet wide. We didn't know the exact number, but we knew thousands of homes and businesses had been damaged or destroyed. At 8 o'clock, we knew that 15 fatalities were confirmed, but I was being told the numbers were certainly going to rise. We anticipated hundreds of missing people. We didn't have water pressure. We didn't have power, just a multitude of problems. But we also had a clear sense that we could come out of this. First of all, our staff was ready and prepared, and every department was functioning as it should. And second of all, our citizens were responding in a very mighty way. They were out there clearing debris. They were out there triaging and treating the injured. They were out there searching our houses home by home. And by 8:30, 9 o'clock, when we finished the briefing, we had set up battalion commands in the 4 areas of the city. Our communications had been reestablished, and we began putting together a plan to deal with this, a plan that's still really in place today. People ask me, well, how did you know what to do? And the answer is, number one was training, and number two is our goals and objectives were being met by the hour. There were no long-term objectives. It was search and recovery, it was removing debris, it was reestablishing water, it was getting assets into the field, beginning humanitarian operations, and those sorts of things. By 8:30, 8:45, we held our first press conference, and I think that's when I began to sense just how much Tuscaloosa was about to be on the world stage. As I walked out to the podium to see a bank of cameras like no other, I realized for the first time that Tuscaloosa was definitely going to be the story of the day. And one of the things that I thought that was extremely important was conveying a message that no matter the scope of the tragedy and the magnitude of the damage, that our response was going to be calm, we were going to communicate with the public, and we were going to be compassionate during this entire crisis. And I think the fact that the city was poised, no matter what the situation, gave our citizens a sense of calmness, that this is a horrible situation, yet our city is responding. And by night, by 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, the National Guard had come in with force. We were establishing law and order. We were doing the things that were necessary to get our city functioning. And under our crisis management plan, one of the mayor's responsibilities was to be the spokesperson for the city, which I would advise for any mayor of any city, because ultimately the people elect you, and they're going to hold you responsible. You're going to be the person they trust to deal with the disaster. So for us, it gave us one clear voice. And I would tell any mayor this. Sometimes working with the media can be difficult, and a lot of times they're going to ask some questions that you may feel that are uncomfortable. But all in all, the media is your friend. And I would encourage any mayor, number one, is that you need to be the point of contact or have someone close to you that is one point of contact for your community, so that one picture is being painted across the world. And number two is be open and transparent. You can't hide anything in today's media anyway. Have an honest dialogue, share with them what you know, and be upfront that numbers and situations will change. People tend to think of it as, well, get fire and rescue out to search, get police in there to control signals and control traffic intersections and to prevent looting, and that's it. But there's a myriad of other issues. There's logistics. How do you get food out there 24/7? How do you get supplies? How do you get equipment? How do you get clothes, by the way, because everyone's clothes and boots are shattered. I mean, there's a myriad of different things that we had never thought about. For example, one of the crucial items the night of April 27th was stop signs. We lost over 1,000 intersection signs throughout the city. We needed stop signs, 100 of them quick, just so the next day people driving in the city don't kill each other going through intersections. Very small detail. Well, in our training in Emmitsburg, we were given those types of items to begin to think about. And without that kind of thought, because so much is going in emergency, you have to take care of not only the big things, but the little things, because those little things can mushroom fairly quickly. Without that training, I'm not sure if Tuscaloosa would have been the model to a response to a natural disaster on the scale of what we experienced on April 27th. One of the most surreal moments is when I left City Hall after that first night. It was about 3 a.m. And the way I go home bypasses all the damage that occurs in Tuscaloosa. And I come to the one intersection where it's signalized, and there's a Northport police officer working that intersection. It was the first time that I felt like I might cry. And why would I feel this way? Is because it felt so good to know that the city of Northport was there for the city of Tuscaloosa. And to know that you're not alone in facing a disaster. In fact, over 34 municipalities across the state either sent police or fire or other emergency personnel or inspectors to the city of Tuscaloosa. I can't think of a region of this state that did not send people into Tuscaloosa to help us deal with this disaster. And when you go through something like this, where you lose 12% of your city and 7,274 homes and businesses are either severely damaged or destroyed, there are many times where you feel like you don't have the men, material, or supplies to deal with it. But you look around, and there were your fellow colleagues throughout this state making a difference. In those critical hours where we had lost over $50 million of our own assets, it was the communities and municipalities throughout this state that stepped up to fill in the gap to make sure that we didn't fade into the night.